We're back.
Yeah, we're back. We're in February. It's really cold, like really, really cold, and it's going to just get even colder. It's so
I heard
cold.
like a foot of snow this week. Is that right?
Yes, like on Tuesday, and then it's going to be like the wind chill is going to be like -20 or something crazy.
Oh my gosh.
What? That's not. That's like
That's wild.
Antarctica.
Yeah, it's too much.
I know. No,
We've gotten so much snow this year.
so much snow. But there is some sunshine every so often, so that makes it better. Those dreary days just get me. Every year I have to get out my little sun. I have a, it's like a 5x7 kind of thing, but it's like sunlight, and I plug it in right here, and yeah,
I need
it's like
one of
fake
those.
sun. Yeah.
Yeah, I need one of those.
Because God, the dreary days, they just go on and on and on, and it's really hard to, I don't know, enjoy the beauty of it all. Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversations that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is. And we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we will be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world.
So today we have a very special guest, one that I'm very excited to have on. It's a longtime personal friend. Her name's Jeanaya. She's one of the smartest people that I know. And I know that she'll push back on that, but it's true. And she's one of the most talented people that I know. And it's kind of funny when we were talking before. Julie has been there. You've been there for like most of the most traumatic events of my life, most of them. And Jeanaya has been kind of on the other side of that, where I hit my rock bottom, was very broken, and her husband and family kind of our lives connected shortly after that time. And she's been present for the entire healing journey, which is just really, it feels like two worlds colliding in a beautiful way today.
That's neat. Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess with that, we'll bring her up and let her share her story. Hello.
Yes, it's important to unmute, but hello.
There you go. Yeah.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, introductions. I'm Jeanaya Thomas, and I am a chef, clinical herbalist, holistic nutritionist, and urban farmer. And in addition to an urban farm over on the Missouri side that my husband and I operate, I operate Harveytown Wellness, and that has been a journey from going from a place of wanting clean food to also combining my education in integrative health and my culinary education to be able to help clients meet their wellness goals. So I'm a member of the National Herbalist Guild and the National Association for Nutrition Professionals. And yeah, I do menu consults and herbal consultations and just try to help people on their journey, whatever wellness looks like for them.
Mm, that's amazing. That's an amazing field to be in. And I think it's going to become much more integrated into society in the future, like the
I hope
near
so.
future. Yes.
Mhm. Has to
Yes.
be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of what sparked the idea to invite Jeanaya on, I was at work and just had a really spontaneous conversation with one of my coworkers. And the conversation was kind of around pharmacology and PTSD. This person's significant other is prescribed Adderall, which we've talked about my experience with that and how terrible it was and how it was precisely the wrong drug, like literally the exact wrong thing that they could have prescribed, because I had a nervous system issue, not ADHD issue. And so as I was explaining this to my coworker, I started to talk about the work Janae and I have been doing together, which is that she's been consulting me on herbs to take to help heal my nervous system. And it's been, I mean, just in the short time, what, a month that she's got me on these herbs, I feel so much better. Like I feel more grounded. I'm explaining all this to my coworker. She leaves and I'm sitting there with the conversation. I was like, well, duh, she should just come on the podcast and share her wisdom. So that's how we got here.
Well, yeah,
So,
because I mean, we talk a lot about healing ourselves, healing from within, and and what you put into your body matters. And so it's completely right in our alley. So this
well,
is great.
yeah, no, I mean, it's like that. That's the idea, is that nursing you is nursing you, the audience member. And so having her come on and share this knowledge and wisdom is nursing our audience. We're literally doing the thing that we intended to
Yeah.
do with this podcast. So
Mhm.
it was a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jeanette, what I think I know, but in your own words, what are some of the driving forces behind your desire to help?
Driving forces. Oh, I don't know. I think for me, it's just who I am. Like the
Mm.
more that I do this, the more I just go like I'm built for this.
Mhm.
Like, and I don't mean that. I mean that in like the I don't know, the nicest way possible. I have a connection to herbs. I have a connection to preparing food that is not just, empty calories, something just to make the hunger go away. Not instead I want to prepare meals that build the body. My daughter and I were having a conversation because over the weekend I made a treat. I do like every week. I made like cinnamon rolls, and my daughter was talking about, okay, she was talking about calories, and I said, actually, the ones that I make have 1/3 the calories of the ones you'll buy in the grocery store. And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, that's because the ingredients that I'm using, I'm not putting in a bunch of, you know, oils in there in order to preserve the shelf life. I
Mhm.
don't need to put more sugar in there in order to preserve tenderness. I can just make this thing. You guys are going to eat it immediately. I can make this thing. It's going to have real, ingredients in it, and it's going to have 200 calories instead of 6 or 8.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah,
going
it
to
makes
be
perfect
something
sense.
yeah, it's not going to be something that's going to tip you over for the whole day. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's about wellness from within. It's about being connected to things that are natural, to nature, and so that's me. That's who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just curious. I think it's an interesting question to like dig deeper into why that's who you are.
Yeah, I
Like
was going to ask,
what
where does that come from? Like,
yeah,
at what age did you know or notice that you felt drawn to that?
I will have to give credit to my own mother
Mm,
and to my grandmother. My mom and my grandma, my mom, I remember her when we would get sick, we would always have like she would always pursue like a natural course of action
mm,
prior to pharmaceuticals. Okay,
Mm,
but before we even took a cough medicine, if we had a sore throat, gargle with salt water, right?
mm,
To try let's clean things up in there. Let's try to draw out any impurities. And then if it's something that really needs an intervention that's pharmaceutical, then we'll do that if it's absolutely necessary, right?
mm,
And she had this book in her library of books. My mom was always a reader, but she had like a natural home remedy book that she would consult, and that even growing up I got interested in, and I wanted to
mm,
look at ways that I could heal myself. um, my grandmother, she was always a person who she cooked everything from scratch. And so our whole family gathered at her house for holidays and things like that. And I just admired her so much. She not only cooked, but she grew food. So that's
mm,
where all the rest comes in, is that she
mm.
had a backyard garden full of things that she grew. She would take the things that she grew and she would turn it into food for her family.
mm,
Wow.
And that fascinated me as a kid. And so that's how you get me. Is it's a
mhm.
combination of my mom and grandmother.
Wow.
Amazing.
It is. It's so beautiful. The just thinking of the culture of it, the ancestry, keeping that alive. That I mean, that it's so beautiful. It really
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
And so as
Yeah.
I got older, it was always something that I wanted to do, just, as a profession.
Mhm.
And it's something that I've always, and Caleb can tell you this, that, even, in prior interactions and stuff, if he would complain about something, I'd say, "Hey, try this," but it's but I decided to go ahead and return to school and pursue education in herbalism, just and to pursue credentials and things like that. So I decided to make it not just something that's a part of me growing up, but also to um, make it my profession.
Yeah.
Formalize it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And what she meant by if I would complain about something, what she's saying is if I would have an ailment, an upset stomach or a headache or anything, if I was there and I complained about something, she would always just have the remedy. She'd throw something together in the kitchen or hand me a handful of, you know, this thing or that thing and tell
Mhm.
me to take it. And I'd be like, oh, I feel better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the remedies and these herbs and things that are growing in the earth have been there for, you know, thousands and thousands of years. And, it's only been not very long since we've had all these chemical medicines. But, like my mother was a nurse. And so as nurses, you are in the hospital, you, it seems silly that with all these medicines that we have that can help you, why would you eat like greens and weeds and other things like that? That was
Mm,
my thought, and I think a lot of nurses feel that way until something clicks and you're like, I think these medicines are doing way more harm than good. And something takes you back to that, the essence of what is in our earth, because the earth has been here for so long. And we know that they were using remedies like this so long ago that worked and kept humans alive and healed them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of what we're seeing and what has been the case with a lot of pharmaceutical drugs is actually a lot of them are based from herbs, or based from things that grow from the ground. But what happens is they don't understand all of the chemicals within the herbs, so they study and find the ones that, like, oh, we know what this active ingredient does, so we'll isolate the active ingredient because we know it will affect this particular response in the body, or it will affect this particular condition or disease. And so we'll go ahead and isolate that, and they leave behind all of the agonists or antagonists, and you get this one chemical with the side effects. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where it's like when you use the whole herb, you get or a whole some we don't even like to use all the time single herbs. We do when it's necessitated, but they will take one herb or one ingredient and they'll use it without anything that will kind of help the body to be able to assimilate it without bad reactions. Um,
Mm.
and so using whole herbs, you see a lot fewer negative impacts. It's a lot gentler on the body. And then also, I mean, food, herbs can be medicine. So we also like to combine herbs so that they can balance one another out.
See, I feel like this conversation is touching on what I recently talked about, where we're at a point where spirituality and materialism have an opportunity to kind of come together in a beautiful way. In the like most people think when you say materialism that we're talking about the desire to acquire material things. But what materialism means in the scientific realm is the reductionist process of empirical form. That you're taking this herb and you're going to isolate it down to its active ingredient, and so you silo that one thing into its truest form, and you disregard everything else without looking at the interconnectedness of the whole thing. And so, as I hear Jeanaya talking, what I'm hearing is this, like, you're going back to the spiritual element of our physical world. What you're really saying is like that's the further out we get. I don't have my cell phone is recording me right now. Our brains are out here in this cell phone, and entirely, like, so much of my brain power exists in there because I've put it in there. I've manually entered the things that I like and the things that I don't like, and it holds so much information that used to exist purely here for us. And so in our experience of life and modernity, we have this separation that so much of our lives is happening external to us, and it's pushing us into this kind of self-contained constricted mind space, and which is to say that the spiritual element of our physical experience is being disconnected. And what I hear
Mm.
Janae saying in going back to the holistic approach of growing your own herbs, knowing how they work, you're connecting the spiritual, like, you're connecting the spiritual and the physical in a symbiotic way that it was intended to be.
Mhm.
Well, if you think
Yeah.
about it, what I mean, we all learned in biology that we're all made out of cells, right?
Hmm.
Plants are made of cells, humans are made of cells, and so there's something important about, even as we're eating, that we're eating living things, that we're eating plants that are still alive, that we're making sure that we get fruits and vegetables, and herbs. I mean, one of the without like trying to I'm not recommending a cure, but one of the things that has been studied is how incorporating herbs with like barbecued meat, like charred broiled meat, actually reduces it counteracts the carcinogens that are produced from that charred meat. So if you're adding raw herbs to your charred hamburger,
Mm.
actually bringing down that risk related to charred meat. And so
Mm.
Wow.
it's just kind of one of the amazing things in nature that if we are connecting with living things, just as much as when breathing clean air makes a huge difference, you know, we are doing something wonderful for our bodies and for our mental health and our
Mhm.
and our spiritual health, being able to connect to those things is really important for our wellness.
So talk more about mental health. Talk more about how your diet and herbs and things and how that can relate, because there might be a disconnect for people. People think you eat and it just goes in your gut and then it's like for physical for your body. But we know that it affects your mind. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Because of the gut brain connection, right?
Mhm.
Because, they talk about the channels of connection between the gut and the brain. Like, I think it's only 20% of the connection between the gut and the brain goes from the brain to the gut. And the rest of
Mm.
it, 70 to 80%, goes from the gut to the brain. So basically, what you're putting in your body, what you're eating is going to have an enormous impact on your brain, on your mental health, you know? And so we want to be able to get things that are, not causing inflammation. If we are, you know, eating things that cause inflammation in our body, we're going to experience things like brain fog, just right off the bat, for a person who might be otherwise healthy. If you're not eating things that are um, high in nutrients, if you're eating things that are, high in trans fats or high in, just sugar, you might get caught in that loop of, I can't focus, I'm getting headaches, because of what we're consuming.
Does it affect things like anxiety and
Yeah.
just, like PTSD type things that you're dealing with? But I mean, just talk about how changing the diet might help someone who maybe they want to get off their antidepressant or, something like that, or they're thinking about taking something because they're having lots of mood swings or depression or even anxiety from, you know, stress or whatever.
Right. So without trying to recommend something that would be
Right.
considered a like one size fits all, because
Mhm.
all of our bodies respond differently to trauma and to the after effects of trauma, the mental health impacts of trauma. One of the first things that we want to do, with regard to PTSD and mental or anxiety, things like that, is really focus on what are we putting in our stomachs, right? And because it's kind of a loop. Trauma can cause issues with digestion, and poor diet can cause you to have issues with processing trauma, right?
Mm.
Mm. Mhm.
So 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 we have to break that cycle, right?
Mm.
And the
Mhm.
the easiest way, the first place to break that cycle is with our diet. And so once again, it's like that. If there is a one size fits all thing, it is making sure that we are getting nutrient rich foods. So
Mm.
we want foods, we want colorful vegetables. We want to make sure that we're eating good protein. If you can eat meats and nuts, if your body can tolerate those things, we want to eat those things that are full of vitamins. We want to make sure that we're getting, broccoli, CoQ10, cauliflower fish, lentils. We want to make sure that eggs, tuna, things that are going to provide our bodies with the nutrients that it needs to do that mental processing, and try to reduce our sugar intake
Mhm.
it's hard because we get addicted to it, right? Because we need, especially if we live a really busy, high demand life, it gets hard to reduce that sugar, but we want to go ahead and try to increase the protein so that we're feeling more satiated and
Mhm.
less hungry all the time, because eating sugar sort of also becomes a loop where we eat the sweets and then we become hungry again and then we want
Mhm.
more sweets.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. What else? We
Talk
want
about marshmallow root and the gut lining.
Yes. Marshmallow root is amazing and helps to coat the gut lining in order for us to be able to the digestive tract. It's a we prepare it in a cold preparation in order to bring out the mucilaginous properties. It creates
Mm.
kind of like a gel. Um, and you drink it in sips, if you can tolerate it, and it helps to coat and to heal the lining of your gut so that you are protecting and rebuilding your digestive tract. Another one that I like for digestion, especially when people are having trouble with heartburn, gastric reflux, that sort of thing, is a calendula. Calendula is one that can help uh, with the when once heartburn is already going, once it's
Mm.
already torturing you, it can help to reduce that stomach acid and begin to heal some of that damage that's um, taking place in the digestive tract.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very.
So that
So, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the gut is really, really important, and healing the gut is really important when it comes to PTSD and the effects of trauma. I don't, and because, as you know, like when we're under a lot of stress and pressure, it can actually slow down our our digestion, and it can be more difficult for our bodies to actually process the nutrients that we need. And so, just as the depending on where a person is in their healing journey, really determines like what approach I would take, for
Mm.
instance. Whether or not I'm going to say, okay, we're going to leave your stomach alone for right now. And we're just going to say, nervous system, only nervous system. Or if we're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and try to tackle, you know, what's going on in the gut. It really just depends on how well um, an individual can tolerate a certain
Mm.
approach.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
is the marshmallow root, is there, like you talked about cooking it, is there more accessible form that like our audience could pick up and just take without the effort?
So I would recommend marshmallow root only from a reputable source to make sure that it's not contaminated with any other ingredients or herbs that, can potentially cause, a reaction of some
Sure.
sort, just depending on each individual.
Mhm.
Um, but again, it's something typically like I order it from a supplier in California. And there are locally here in Kansas City, there are a few herb shops that people might be able to walk into and pick up marshmallow root. It's also something, if people are interested, it's something that you can grow. Um,
Mm,
Mm.
and you can have on hand in your garden, and that, you can harvest and dry yourself.
wow.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, how people go to the doctor for ailments. Something's wrong with my stomach, something's wrong with I don't feel good, something's wrong with my head. And you go to the doctor and then the doctor prescribes a medication. And so really having someone who has education and a background in, prescribing or recommending herbs would be best. Otherwise, you really need to study so that you know what's best to use. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, finding someone like you who has the experience, the knowledge to guide someone, you know, to understand what their needs are so that you can recommend the best thing for them is important, I think, rather than trying to just pick from a book like symptom this or this or this, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually in herbalism, we don't match an herb to a symptom. We don't prescribe because we
Right.
don't we don't treat conditions. We recommend herbs for a person
Mhm.
because what in herbalism we don't um, look at you and as your condition. We look at you as a person. You have um, a particular personality. We look at people as being, are you hot as a person? Are you warm? Are you cold? Are you dry? Do you have like does it seem like your body could use more moisture? And
Mm.
do you look yeah, do you have a tightness about you? Do you have, you know, we look at all of those things as a person and along with the symptoms that you're complaining of, because there's some herbs that if I were to recommend or just go to a book and go, hey, oh, this herb is good for this particular ailment, if we don't understand all of the properties of that herb, like that herb is hot and dry. That herb
Mm.
is going to warm you up and it's going to dry you out. Well, if you're
Mm.
already a dry person, that's going to be horrible. It's you're going to have a negative experience and you're going to
Yeah.
be like, yeah, I'm not into that herb stuff,
Right,
It's
right,
the wrong one for you. And
right.
so it is something that we we study and we do continuing education just like many people who are in the wellness field, that we do have to specialize in it. And a lot of people who are in herbalism or who are herbalists specialize only in certain areas. So there are some
Mm.
people who specialize in women's health, there are some people who specialize in men's health, and some people who specialize in reproductive health or
Mm.
the immune system.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
So it's because there are so many different herbs, people become kind of experts in those particular areas.
Are you focusing on any particular area?
I feel like an area has picked me.
Okay.
Mm.
And I think and it is specifically in the area of grief and trauma. And
Mm.
um, I feel that the people who have and basically kind of the results of grief and trauma, because the effects of it, the after effects, manifest in so many different ways, right? I do see a lot of things that happen with the gut and with digestion, with anxiety, with lack of sleep, not being able to sleep or stay asleep. And I mean, that can also be a loop, because if
Yeah,
you have issues with your digestion, you're not going to sleep well if your
yeah,
stomach is just
Hmm.
doing weird things all night,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so, like I said, I feel like this area has picked me because of the clients that have approached me and kind of the world we live in right now, right? Where there's
Mm.
just kind of so many different things happening. People are under a lot of stress. They're having their jobs pulled out from under them. They're, dealing with the loss of loved ones. It's just things are kind of really, really intense right now in the
Yeah,
world. And
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Mhm.
So I do want to clarify. I don't know that I heard I heard you talk about the mucinologic effect of marshmallow root,
Yeah.
and I don't know that we fully tied that piece together, because when you told me that at your house that day, or no, we were on a consult on Zoom. You said that the marshmallow root increases the mucosal lining in the gut. The it restores. So part of trauma is that when you have trauma, that gut lining gets decreased. The mucus lining that
It can
coats
be damaged based.
it gets damaged, and so the marshmallow root increases the production of mucus in that mucosal lining, which begins to help heal that gut, so that it can start remaking the connections, or reconnecting itself.
Right.
So
Mm.
I
Right.
just wanted
So
to clarify that piece and let you talk about that a little bit.
yeah, so marshmallow, it does. It increases the moisture in the body, and it helps to heal those irritated tissues in in the gut. So as you're digesting and all of that, it definitely increases the mucus production big time. Like even marshmallow leaf, I gave it to, there's like a cough going around or something like that, and I gave it to my husband, and I gave it to him for like one day, and I could hear like the mucus production. I was like, okay,
Mm.
you don't need any more because we don't need
Mhm.
any more mucus, right? And so um I mean, that's basically what it does. So when you, our body and our digestive tract needs that mucus in order to protect the lining, right? In order to protect those tissues. And so we, so the marshmallow is just one herb in an arsenal, basically, of herbs
Mhm.
that are used to help with digestion based on a person's specific needs. So if they have a situation that warrants um, help with coating the stomach and coating the digestive tract to help produce more mucus, then we are looking at marshmallow root to help them kind of coat and heal those damaged tissues and produce more mucus.
Yeah.
We've done an entire episode talking about the importance of the microbiome in the gut, and so it just we Julie and I in that episode we talk about fecal transplants, where when someone gets really sick with a C. diff infection or something like that, we will do fecal transplants to help regenerate the microbiome. And I just like, as I think about the process of that, specifically C. diff, and how those spores are basically creating these spikes that just come out and they just lacerate the whole thing. If we as as a healthcare system adopted some of these practices and some of this practical wisdom of herbalism, that marshmallow root could provide that extra layer of protection within that gut lining, so that maybe that C. diff, maybe the body has a chance to wash the C. diff out. If that gut lining is, if that mucosal lining is insulated and protected with mucus, it has less, that infection has less of a chance to take deep hold. If
Right.
that mucosal lining is washed away, it's just going to have direct access to that tissue, and it's just going to start cutting.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of C. diff happens after you've been on high dose antibiotics.
Uh-huh.
And so those antibiotics, I guess I don't know exactly how it works, but it tears up the gut. That's just what I'm going to call it. And so it leaves it vulnerable to this overproduction.
Well,
And
what it does is, because we're using broad spectrum antibiotics, especially
Mhm.
in the setting that we're in, we're
Uh-huh.
hitting everything. So
Yeah.
that entire flora is destroyed. So
Right.
all of the protection, like, I don't know in any detail, but I would imagine that bacteria is. I actually, the way that I would think of it is that it's kind of like the kombucha pearls,
Oh.
like that the mucosa and the bacteria are creating this ecosystem. Like, do you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And so when
Yeah.
those bacteria die, that ecosystem gets destroyed. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a similarity there between actually broad spectrum antibiotics and trauma. So basically, the same
Mm.
thing that happens as a result of using antibiotics can also happen as a result of trauma, which really sucks because you can have so much of an impact in the gut from experiencing trauma that your microbiome becomes affected. It's called dysbiosis, and you can actually become more susceptible to
Yeah.
C. diff and to a bunch of other just nasty things that we don't want to end up with. And
wow.
so it's important, that as if we're someone who has experienced trauma, that we want to really, I mean, it's hard to feel the motivation. It's hard to even feel the ability to focus, to be able to want to focus on ourselves and on our own health. But being able to say, hey, I don't want to let this get to a point that I'm hospitalized, or that I'm in a place where I need to be on pharmaceutical drugs or that sort of thing, to be able to really sort of pamper the gut, for lack of a better word,
Mm,
so that if nothing else, we are protecting the lining of our gut, as you're talking about, Caleb, so that we're able to protect and prevent permeability. We don't
yeah,
want things getting through, and so it's a huge thing.
yeah. So
It's just
what is it? Oh, I was gonna say, what
no,
is it about trauma that has the impact on the lining? Is it like one thing I would think, is it increased cortisol? Is it a chemical reaction? Or how could you explain that? Like, so someone can tie, like, how does that happen?
And that's a really good question. And the best way that I can explain it is that what epigeneticists are telling us is that when we experience trauma, it happens on a cell, like our bodies experience it, right? It's not just
Mhm.
the mind.
Yeah.
Our bodies experience it, and it's down to a cellular level. And
Okay. Mhm.
so it's throwing all kinds of different things out of balance, and we're
Mm.
and because of that, because our nervous system is impacted, it it goes into, like, they talk about the fight or flight mode, but then there's also a freeze.
Mhm.
There's a theory that there's also a freeze. And when we get into that place of being frozen, our body starts to shut down all these processes. And they talk about how, like, in fight or flight, our body wants to burn fat. Our body will say, nope, we need the energy because we're going to fight, right?
Yeah.
In freeze, our body shuts down the process of burning fat and actually starts to store it.
Right.
We get into
Yeah.
this hyper overstimulated place of where your brain says, nope, I can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
And things begin to shut down. And
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Hopefully
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, it's there's probably hundreds of processes that yeah, so it's not just it's not a direct thing. It's lots of processes, things shut down because our body is so complicated. And really you saying that it happens on a cellular level just makes sense because the cells are the basis of everything that's within our body. Yeah.
Yeah. The Like, trauma is considered an allostasis or an allostatic load. So we are,
Hmm.
yeah.
I've never heard
So
that word.
I have heard that before, but it's been a while.
yeah. So we can end up having, as a result of trauma, like hypertension, high blood pressure, immune dysfunction,
Mm,
like all of
mhm.
these things can start to just, we get taken out of homeostasis.
Yeah.
It's That's what happens.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it I would love for it to make more sense, but it's just what we're observing is that our body, once we're in a period of prolonged stress,
Yeah.
we're under the impacts of prolonged trauma, we become more susceptible to disease.
Yeah. I think when I was at the height of my stress in COVID and it just the years leading up to that, I mean, I had to completely I had hypertension since I had my kids because I had hypertension with pregnancy, and so I'd been on some low dose medication. But when I was at the height of all that, well, first of all, I felt like I was gonna die, like, my body, I physically felt like I was dying, and I went to the doctor. I had to, like, almost triple my blood pressure medication. I
Oh,
had to completely change, my antidepressant and go to the highest dose of that. My thyroid, which I had been and I think thyroid gets whacked because we work night shift, but either way, I had been on some thyroid medication. It had been very stable, but up until that point, I couldn't get it stable. I was changing doses like every time I did labs. And so, you know, if you knew now what if I wish I would have known, but I didn't. So I went to the doctor. And so then my medication list, went 5 more deep. And it's been since about 2022 that I've been working on fixing things and kind of reversing that to try to get off some of that medication. But that it makes perfect sense of why stress and traumatic trauma, and just not big traumas, but also just the little T trauma that happens a lot of times to nurses every shift you're working. And especially if you're working at night, your sleep is very whack. And during COVID, I mean, all of it is so impactful on your physical body. So, yeah.
So I kind of want to go on a little thought journey.
I have
Actually,
something to
Janaya's husband is the one that calls it Caleb's mental workshop.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that gave it the term. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you want to say?
I was just gonna say, and just adding to the whole trauma impacting us at the cellular level, that our cells actually have like well, we know already with our immune system and all of that, our cells have this um, danger response, and that prolonged trauma can actually impact that. And they say that it can potentially impact our mitochondria. So you were asking the question
Wow.
about,
Mm-mm.
and epigeneticists have said that now they're seeing our in they study specifically in men, that men who had experienced trauma during their lives, their sperm was passing on signs of that trauma.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's flipping on different genes because the body is responding to that trauma, and so different genes are being switched on and switched off as a
Mhm.
result of that trauma, and it's being passed on. So that whole generational trauma thing is in they're starting to find
I
science to back
fully
it up.
believe that, and
Yeah.
I know there's many research studies done on that, but even just in my family, my grandmother and my mother, and her mother, so great grandma, had a lot of trauma, and the birth of my mom was traumatic, and the pregnancy was traumatic, and so I feel like I've been kind of that generation breaker, so I'm healing, I'm acknowledging and doing some of that. And so I thought it would stop with me, but honestly, like my kids, my girls, they have some anxiety. They have like gut issues. And I thought,
Mm.
I've done so good. You had a beautiful home. We never moved. Your parents are married, all of the things, but it has nothing to do with that. I really believe that it is passed down. Now, their lives are nothing like what I experienced, what my mother experienced, what her mother experienced, all that. So it kind of gets diluted, I feel like, as the person starts to heal and as they're healing younger and younger, and will hopefully pass on less and less. But it's it's so real. It's so real. So even if you're like, I mean, I haven't really had that bad of a life, but God, my anxiety is nuts. It
Right,
easily could be passed down from multiple generations.
right.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
And so for that reason, we start to look at the nervous system.
right.
We start to look at how can we, and the wonderful thing about plants is that we don't intend for you to be on any particular like herb forever, so to speak. It's how can we help your body learn something new? How can we help
Mm,
the body to be able to say like, okay, let's learn how to adapt, right? Because that's what our body does. Like the trauma response is our body trying to protect itself.
yeah,
It's our
yeah.
body saying, "Whoa, that was too much," or "Whoa, that was too fast." I need to go into self-protection mode. And so
Mm,
our body learns how to be resilient. It's just our body saying there's something out there that's dangerous, and I need to stay away from it. I need to
yeah,
do the things to protect myself. And so our body is very resilient. Our body can adapt. And so using the herbs is how can we teach our body new ways to adapt, or when it comes to losing sleep as a result of trauma, one of the go-to herbs is chamomile because it's very gentle, and as long as you don't have an allergy. But after a while, a person's, what is it called there? Your
Circadian rhythm.
Thank you. Circadian rhythm should get back into a normal state, and the body should start to be like, oh, as the sun starts to go down, you should start to
Hmm.
feel that tiredness, because your body is saying, your body is used to it now, just like for those of us, and I think we're all parents, your body can learn to be wakeful in the middle of the night because of having a small infant. You can
Hmm.
start to have that pattern of, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. and I don't know why, the baby sleeps now.
Yeah.
But your body learned to do that. It became a learned response. So what we want to do is teach the body how to cope in a new way. We don't need to be on
Mm.
guard all the time.
Yeah.
Let's bring it down and learn this let's make a new connection and
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's teaching. It's teaching your body, which takes time. So
right,
it's teaching it new habits, and it doesn't
right,
happen overnight.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's big. Mhm.
Yeah.
What were you wanting to think about, Caleb?
I mean, I think we got there just in it was the idea that connecting the idea that 20% of the signal is going from the brain to the gut, and how much of it's going from the gut to the brain, and how is it getting there. So what is the connection between the nervous, because the the message isn't getting to the brain any other way than the nervous system. It has to be through the nervous system. And so how are these things impacting that? Because when you think about the nervous system, it's just an electrical conduction. You're conducting electricity. How is that, how is the information that is being sent from these herbs or whatever medicine or whatever, how is it being communicated, I guess. I don't fully understand that, but the long and short of the thought experiment that I was thinking about is kind of goes back to the idea of DNA, which we got there through the epigenetics of the traumatized man handing over a seed that is epigenetically coded to pass along the awareness of the threat.
Yeah.
That when these things, when the two strands of the DNA, when the egg and the seed get together, it creates this homing beacon to the molecular world. I've said this on the podcast before, that this thing becomes a homing beacon to receive. The entire thing is about receiving. And so as this child or any organism, it's a plant. The plant is telling the dirt, send me this molecule in this amount, and this one in that amount, and I need. And so the thing that getting down to the thing, like using my personal experience and journey as kind of a roadmap for this, that as I experienced trauma, I became more self-centered, focused on what I needed. And instead of like,
Mm.
and I've always said this, I became incapable of taking care of anyone else, including myself. And so one of the things that I recognize, so this nervous system from the very beginning is about receiving. All of these electrical conductions are receptors. We, we're receiving all of this information, good and bad, all the time. And so there's this, like, the nuance of a human being, that's the passive receptive aspect, and then being human is the giving part. Like, one of the
Mm.
things that I've found that took me out of that self-focused place was serving others, doing things for other people, like being human. Instead of just a human being, I became someone who was being human, and
Mm.
that also healed the nervous system. Like, giving actually is receiving in the healthy way. So that was kind of the thought experiment summed up. I think if our audience members are out there that are experiencing that, recognize, like, there was a part of me that, like, I knew that I was being selfish. I knew that, like, I had this sense of entitlement that I had to
Mm,
protect myself, which is a false thought. I mean, there is an element of that. You do have to protect yourself. You do have to put up guards and say, no, you can't come in here. No, I don't want this in my life. And there is a healthy element to that. But when it becomes the driving force of your life, where you then isolate, like our other friend that lost her life that we referenced throughout this, she isolated. She became completely, she just like imploded within herself, as did I. And so what I'm saying is, to the nurses out there that are in that place, the way out of that is doing things for other people,
Yeah.
giving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
just
Even
trying
in
to
even in small
connect it all.
doses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
even down to the cellular level, right? If the cells are protecting themselves, your whole body was saying, I need to
Mm.
protect myself.
Uh-huh.
I've experienced trauma. I
Too
need to
much.
worry about me.
Uh-huh.
And so
Yeah.
it's what I'm listening to you and I'm going, yeah, that's a natural response to
Uh-huh.
experiencing trauma. Your whole body is saying a nope.
Enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Too
Yeah.
much.
Too
yeah,
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like a robot who has too much input. There's too much input. He cannot take it. And you see, whether it's a cartoon or whatever you see on TV, and it just
Bing.
explodes. Yeah. I mean, like springs go everywhere.
Yeah.
It cannot function. And we
absolutely.
try to make ourselves function for so long by just gripping on to life. And I don't know why we do that to ourselves. I think we're just taught that that's the way it should be, but it doesn't have to be that way. I, no, it's just so
Do
hard.
we I wonder, like in our as you're asking that question, in our society, many of us don't know how to respond to trauma, how to
Right.
respond to our own body's experience of it, right? Like
Mhm.
a person might not understand that all of the things that are happening in their body or in their mind or in their emotions are a result of trauma, and that they need to do certain things in order to heal themselves. They may not recognize that, hey,
Yeah.
I'm suffering here, and it's
Hmm.
not just something that I'm just supposed to ignore and proceed as normal, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're not very connected to our bodies. We're not taught the connection to our bodies. We're very separate. The mind is separate. I mean, just thinking about being in school for so long, no teacher, nothing is taught about how does your body feel? I see that you're really upset and you're angry. Are you feeling that in your stomach? Are you feeling that in your you know what I mean? Put your hand where you feel. Nothing is ever taught that way. It's so separate, and you're basically just taught to, like, don't act like that, and
Mm.
because that's not appropriate.
Right.
There's no body brain connection being taught. And so sometimes you see these little things about teachers in preschools and things doing, like some meditation or mindfulness, or just it's so beautiful to teach a child that, because they're so close to already knowing that it's not a hard concept for them to
Mm.
grasp. And so if you can nurture that as they grow older, I mean, they're going to take that information, just like all the other information that they learn at school. They'll take that into their adulthood. I mean, just some of these women or even girls who've been pregnant, who don't know they're pregnant for
Right.
till they're 9 months pregnant.
Yeah.
That's because they have no connection to their body, because they've been either traumatized out of it, and there's no connection. And learning that you are your body, and
Mm.
that just like you pride yourself on your outward appearance, your insides have to
Mm.
be you have to tend to them, and trim their hair, and take a bath, and clean it. And it's not taught. But I feel like, don't you feel like a shift is happening a little bit? I feel like there's more information out there, and people are kind of waking up to the fact that pharmaceuticals and that is not the only way. There's
I
they're
think so.
looking for more.
I definitely feel that way. I think that a lot of people are looking for more. They're looking for alternatives. because there's, when you can't sleep at night and, you're on Ambien or you're on some other pharmaceutical drug to try to, tackle that. But then, you're waking up with the side effects and things. People, I think, get tired of the cycle and they recognize that there's something, there must be something else that we can
Yeah.
do. There must
Yeah.
be some alternative. And they become more open-minded to search for things that can things that can help them feel like themselves again,
Yeah.
because there's when you're kind of inundated with so many heavy drugs, you don't feel like yourself anymore.
Right.
And that can get old. That can get
Yeah.
old pretty fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are all searching. Like, I think we talk a lot on the podcast about mistrust of the medical sciences and how, how that has led to so much conspiratorial thinking, and so like this idea that we're all searching for deep meaning in our lives. That search can go in two directions. You can search in a positive way and you can search in a negative way, and you create those neural pathways of how you search and what you search for. And it's bringing up for me the idea, like, hospitals are not designed for health. They're designed to deliver technology to that that intervenes with the breakdown of the body, right?
Mhm.
It's not a hospital is like, literally, I've said this for 20 years. They measure the rooms with micrometers, meaning that when you go into a hospital room, it's this very sterile space, and the bed literally like it's this tight to the wall. Like, you have to get it lined up just right because they measured it with an F micrometer.
Mhm.
It's the tolerances are so tight. It's not about creating a healing environment. It's about delivering technology. And part of this idea comes from a podcast called On the Table, and I can't remember the name of the doctor, but I think he has a PhD in philosophy, and
Oh.
also became a medical doctor and a board certified neurologist. And he's studying the impact of aesthetics on our nervous systems. And so
Hmm.
in this conversation that I listened to, they're talking a little bit about that. And but the idea, like the big idea that I'm bringing from that conversation, just for the point of this point, is that the hospitals are not designed for healing. They're designed as a delivery system for technology to create healing, but the environment is not about healing. And so as I'm listening to Jeanaya hand over all of her wisdom, one thought that has come to me numerous times throughout this is that, look at the food delivery system of the hospital.
Ugh.
It's atrocious.
Oh,
It's
sick.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So if we had someone like Jeanaya, who was a skilled chef, who had the wisdom of herbalism, who understood the healing properties of how those things are interconnected, and we took a person like Jeanaya into a hospital for her to design the kitchen and the food delivery system, how much healing could actually happen from that? Like, if we actually looked at the hospital as a healing center versus a delivery system for technology, the trust in a hospital like that would be so much, like that's the point that I'm getting at, is like, how can you trust a hospital that is delivering food that is killing you?
I know. God, it's terrible. But, the thing with that is if you're actually healing people so they don't require medication, then they're never coming back. Like, they're
Yes.
not gonna be patients. They're not gonna need surgery. They're not gonna need treatments. And it's not a money-making business. And I think that's, in my mind, it always draws a line in the sand for me, because the the payment system and the money making system of healthcare is keeping people sick. I mean, it just is.
Yes, yes, but it's not working, and that's been
Well,
my
we know
like,
it's not working, but it's
we've
definitely making them money.
it's definitely making them money, but it's not working, and the trust factor is, uh, I
Yeah.
I don't think that it's sustainable long term. I don't like,
I mean,
they're gonna have to
what a
figure
beautiful
that out.
healing center. Can you even imagine, like, if you had a hospital, or just call it a healing center, that was beautifully aesthetic, be beautiful,
Uh-huh.
like something in your mind off of a Pinterest
Not
board
measured
or
with a
something.
micrometer.
Right, and you had beautiful bedding, sheets that were healing, grounding mats, meditation, and the diet and the food and the herbs that could heal you, like, what? It would be amazing.
I
But
mean,
you couldn't have insurance. No one
Right.
would buy into that, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
it wouldn't that's probably why they're not there, because that would be a very expensive. I mean, I think there are smaller, like, wellness clinics, that are very similar in a smaller aspect of that, but how amazing would it be to have, instead of a big giant, I mean, in Kansas City alone, what do we have? Like, 9 big medical centers? I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And if we just had one large healing center that people could go to and actually be healed and feel better and sleep better and eat better and not have to take medication, and that's like a dream.
Yeah.
It's a dream.
Well, I mean, th there are certain clinics that are available like that, but they're usually cash pay,
Yeah,
and our
yeah.
medical system is set up in a way to, number one, deliver emergency medicine,
Mhm.
which herbalists, we don't do surgery, but
Right.
so they're set up to deliver emergency medicine, which can save lives. But
Yeah.
in terms of like a one size fits all, like if you have these symptoms, we're just going to write you one prescription and kind of send you away, sort of thing. Um, you know, that seems like what our healthcare system is set up like in the United States. It seems like what it's set up for, I should say, is to be able to kind of handle the most amount of patients with the least amount of, input in terms of like time, because the average patient gets what, like 15 to 20 minutes with their physician, as they're in a visit. And so, we're set up for that. We're set up for that. What is it called? Like assembly line medicine, so that we can just kind of keep the wheels turning and everybody can see someone, and get something, you know, and it be covered by our health insurance system the way that it is.
I mean, quite literally, health insurance CEOs are dying because of the
Yeah.
corruption. I mean, at some
It's
point,
definitely
it's
breaking down. You can feel it, you can see it. You could see people waking up to realize what they have been offered all of these years, and what they have not been offered. People are realizing, you know, "Hmm,
yeah.
that well, that seems wrong," you know? Wow.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you? Do you have a website, or how do you get clients, and how can people work with you?
So, yes, I have a website. It is harveytownwellness.com, and they can reach out to me there or email me at info@harveytownwellness.com. And they can reach me
Cool.
there. Yeah.
Now talk more about your garden over in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
So, what we are setting up in Missouri, we actually are restarting what we had been doing in the past. We have about a two acre urban farm, and we have fenced garden that is about 1,000 square feet, and then we have a high tunnel which is about 1,000 square feet, and um, more space now that we are turning into a garden that is focused on grief and trauma. So we're growing herbs that help a person be able to experience essentially aromatherapy as they walk through the gardens. It's our goal to be able to provide a place where people can come to meditate, can come to do breath work, can come to do yoga, can come for day retreats, so that they're able to kind of take some time away from um, the demands of life to be able to take some time to breathe um, and also um, get herbs and things like that in our garden. So this is over, it's near Swope Park on the Missouri side.
It sounds beautiful and amazing.
Mhm. It is a really beautiful property. It's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, Caleb, I wanted to tell you that you were talking about the nervous system and how the gut was communicating with the brain, and it is there's part of our nervous system is in our gut. It's so
Mhm.
so it's that communication is happening, and part of it is in the submucosal lining of the gut.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
protecting that mucosa and coating our gut and making sure that our gut is not permeable
Mhm.
is essential to our brain, the health of our brain.
Yeah, no, Julie and I working in the ICU, doing those fecal transplants. I've said it on here before. I'll say it again. I'll always say it. It was like watching a miracle happen in real time. You you would see these people that their faces were so sunken in, their eye sockets were so deeply set in their face, and they just looked dead. And their family members, we were part of a very large, I believe it was CDC clinical study on using fecal transplants to treat C. diff in the worst cases. So we were doing this to people that were literally dying,
Mhm.
Wow.
and we would administer it. And I can remember coming back the next day, and their color was better, their face was less sunken in, they were alive again. Like, the
Yeah.
transformation was radical, and it was fast, and it left such a profound impact on my memory and my mind that there's no one that could convince me that these things are not not true. It's like, this is
Right.
the
That's
truest
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's amazing that you got to witness that, especially,
Mhm.
the before and after part of it. Yeah,
Remarkable.
that's pretty
Yeah.
Remarkable.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, which is also why, like, the marshmallow thing really popped for me. The marshmallow root thing just makes so much sense to me because of that
Yeah.
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
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 Mm,
It's great. This has
it
been great.
is.
I knew it
It
would be
has.
great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's so great. Because it's so right along the lines with our how we feel about our bodies and our lives and trauma and everything, and exactly what we talk about on this podcast. It's nursing you, nursing our bodies, nursing yourself, and just caring for. And the gut is, I mean, a huge part of it that a lot of people don't realize. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
your wisdom is well received.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's great. Yeah. One thing I would say is the one last thing I would recommend is avoid packaged food, if nothing else.
Mm.
Just stay off that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
That's good advice.
yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep the dialogue going by connecting with us on social media posted in the links below, or by visiting our website.
Together, let's continue to redefine nursing and shape a brighter future for those we care for. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep nurturing those connections.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself.